I was standing in the main street of Kaqchikel, Guatemala, when I found myself in a conversation that just seemed too weird to really be happening. Hi, my name is Rick, and I want to thank you for joining me on this No Perfect Parent podcast, where I just take a few minutes to share some of the tips and things I learned on my parenting journey. I was talking to an indigenous Kaqchikel man. His long, flowing, coal-black hair and his distinctive Mayan features were striking against the brightly colored clothes that were part of his traditional Mayan dress. We were discussing his background, which led to a discussion about his 3 daughters, 2 of whom I had just met. All 3 were impressive young Mayan women. The youngest was finishing high school, one was in college, and the oldest was finishing her law degree, which is an astounding accomplishment for indigenous kids, but especially girls in rural Guatemala. The 2 girls there that night were also dressed in the typical clothing of their Mayan people, and they were obviously very well-mannered, cultured, and confident young women. I asked how he'd managed to raise such wonderful young women despite their background of poverty and where women are usually treated as property to be used, abused, and tossed aside. His answer caused me to shake my head in disbelief. He had become a believer in Jesus as a young boy when missionaries came to a small village. Even as a boy, he couldn't understand why rich white people would come all the way to his town. He figured their message had to be very important, so he listened. He believed, and his life changed from that moment on. He worked very hard, and he made a good life for himself as an entrepreneur. But here is where the story got really weird. Many of my friends, he explained to me, even my Christian friends, ask why my girls are so different. Why are they so kind and loving, devoted to me, to the family, and to the Lord? Well, I tell them they can't let their kids watch all that cable TV and expect them to turn out right. What? Even in the remote mountains of Guatemala, families are battling cable TV? Am I the only one that thought, well, perhaps you could escape some of TV's influence by going to a remote spot in the mountains of the developing nation where many of the people don't even have running water in their homes? But apparently, even there, many parents are battling the influence of cable TV, and sadly, many of them are losing the battle. But not this guy. He went on to say that his girls weren't always happy with him monitoring and limiting their TV time, but that was the one thing that he thought made the biggest difference between his girls and the other early 20-something kids in the area, and why his kids were so successful. You know, I wanted to book this guy on a speaking tour in churches in the U.S. That is a message that needs to be proclaimed to Christian parents everywhere. As he put it, you can't let your kids fill their hearts with all that junk on TV and expect anything good to come out of their lives. Jesus put it this way in Matthew 12:34, "For whatever is in your heart determines what comes out." What a great message that we need to hear. You know, if you know of somebody who would benefit from this message of this Mayan father, I want to encourage you to share this podcast with others and take a moment to subscribe below so you get all the future ones. Remember, folks, the only treasure on earth that we can take with us to heaven is our children.